This is not merely a building. It's a sanctuary of remembrance, a threshold where the veil parts, and minds once lulled to sleep begin to rise. This is the house of reawakening minds.
I entered in silence, intellect and despair, seeking refuge from illusions thick in the air. Walls lined with scrolls, lectures dense with light, where knowledge resurrects what was hidden from sight. No pulpit performance, no charismatic show, just a word in its purity, allowing the soul to grow. History unpacked with surgical precision, exposing falsehood, restoring vision. They taught me jurisdiction, the power of a name, how to stand in one's truth, free from legal games, from colonial codes to Moorish descent. I learned that ignorance is the true imprisonment. Not just a church, this is consciousness refined. I found myself inside the house of.
This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns. Inside the house of reawakening
We
minds.
speak of capitives, diminution, and trust law with grace. Pulling veils from the statutes that distort the race. Reverend Doctor don't preach, she teaches through metaphysical keys and universal speeches. From Egypt to Amexim, maps are redrawn, and the minds of the lost are profoundly reborn. They decode etymology, undo the brands, expose how black was a corporate sleight of hand. This is reclamation through language and tone, when status is corrected and sovereigns are grown. From natural law to the astrological signs, the cosmos converge in these sacred confines. This ain't dogma, it's the science of the divine. Every lecture a seed in the garden of the mind.
You said know thyself but gave no guide, until I found the house where illusions died. Here the soul remembers, the contract is clear. We are the heirs and the ancestors cheer. This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns. Inside the house of reawakening.
They don't ask you to believe, only to remember. You are not lost, you've simply been rendered. Redacted by systems, misclassified by law. But the house restores what the paper man saw. It's not just theology, it's the restitching of fate. The alignment of cosmos with your birthright state. Genealogy meets metaphysics, past meets now. The veil is a lie and this house shows how. They speak a treaty, jurisdiction and name. That being black was never a rightful claim. They restore divine memory through patience and fire. Raising minds from bondage in the conscious empire. No choir needed when the frequency's high. It's the house where illusions die.
House of reawakening minds, where scholars become sages and the forgotten reclaim the eternal.
Happy Holy Day, Moors, and welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. As you know, House of Reawakening Minds exists for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are an awakening center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. We greet you in divine, divine love tonight. It's good to be here. It's good to be here. It's good to be here.
Islam, Dr.
Islam.
Assalamu alaikum. Vadi Mekum. Bonabut. Shalom.
Tonight's presentation is entitled Satanic Inquisition Networks, or S.I.N, being disrupted. And when we say S.I.N, S-I-N is an acronym, we're naming a centuries-old system of inversion, a matrix of ecclesiastical, political, and economic control that turned divine beings into debt-bound subjects. The world is now witnessing the collapse of that matrix, and we are honored to have our Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey walk us through the lawful and historical foundations of this disruption. But Grand Sheik, before you get started, I thought about in terms of what the subject matter, was going to be tonight. Mm-hmm. And I remembered, the poem that I wrote back in 2012, I guess I wrote it.
Yes.
And it came out in this book in
name the book because we're always
okay.
Matter of fact, I was looking at my book this morning.
Yeah, this book is called Poetry is the Musings of an Undercover Writer. That I Grand Sheik encouraged me to write back in 2012 and to publish. And I used to stand up in front of the group every time he would have a presentation with all my notes in a notebook. And I think I still have the notebook over here.
Great and inspiring.
But it became a book. But there's a poem that I did called, and this is 13 years ago. At number 13. Yeah. It's called Did I Mention? And I think it'll work with what we're going to be talking about today. It says, did I mention my ascension takes me out of your detention, or that my lower inhibitions have given way to precognition, or that I've opened up my eyes so that I see behind your lies? And it's not hard to recognize that you're the devil in disguise. So you work hard for centuries, enslaving minds of folks like me. And it's not, and it's your fear of this exposure that keeps you delaying full disclosure. How do you sleep at night, knowing your deeds have never been right? And regardless of your 1,000-year plan, soon you won't have a leg on which to stand. All around you, the indigenous are waking, and our birthright back we're taking. Yes, you really should be shaking. Can't you feel your matrix breaking? Excuse me, but did I mention this is not about dissension? Please don't try to make this something that it's not. It's time for righting what's been wrong. It's getting closer. It won't be long before my inheritance you stole, karma will make you restore. And oh yes, did I mention I am more?
Islam. I
think that goes along with the subject matter of tonight. That we're talking about Satanic Inquisition Networks being disrupted. Grand Sheik?
Yes. Before we get into it, I want to, because a part of what a lot of the notes that I was gleaning from earlier this week, preparing, as you already know, I had difficulty charging my phone, so some of the stuff I couldn't get to you when I wanted to.
Right. So.
But and because you prepared so well as you usually do, you were right on line with where I was coming from. So I'm just going to take a couple paragraphs on what I had prepared, and share them from the beginning. And this will give for those of you who are scholars, and those of you who are out there, light workers and people who are trying to help humanity, through this transition period, which we already talked about for years was coming. And so a lot of people need to understand that this disruption, though it may feel injurious to people, is actually dismantling of the matrix of the Satanists.
And it's necessary.
Yeah, it's necessary. So it's like the house must be clean before it's repainted or refurnished, as you might say. And because we've been trained for so many generations under the Circle Church and Chancery's Unum Sanctum operations, we've also gotten attached to the institutions that support it, that have always injured us and have never helped us.
Right.
However, by the people only being exposed to those institutions, there's an affinity that by nature that people have because they know nothing else. If you get the whole point.
Right.
And so people fear change logically.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of people are upset, but they need to, the system, parts of the system have to be disclosed so that the people can mentally, in their mind, start purging or baptizing their mind to cleanse the house of the mind to receive the new energy, from Saturn and Uranus, that is from nature, from the heavens, as you might say. So that's a venue for the thinkers out there, and for those who know cosmology and know the culture from which the philosophies evolve anyway, so they can do work with that, with the people. But I want to present this as we go into this, because it aligns everything. So one of the Satanists' most corrupt and successful social political tricks and traps designed for extorting the natural people is the church and chanceries, their members' construct of the word, quote unquote, taxpayer. Write this down, because in the nature of what we're saying, this gives people a reference for study thereafter, because you already know we're not doing a class in a sense on the show, but we try to put information out there that is useful to people so that they can both help in the transition as well as do certain things in their lives to survive the transition. Because you already know the Satanists, because as they recognize they're being dismantled, they are deliberately trying to injure as many people as they can. So this is why we're saying this. So one of the church and chancery members' most devastating tricks, as the people have known, particularly in this last century, has been what has been commonly referred to as the man of straw or straw man. Mm-hmm. One of the traps of transfer of hereditaments and estate has been the trick and the trap of the word, quote unquote, write this down, taxpayer. I'm going to repeat. The word taxpayer. What it really means, what the word taxpayer means, when they will send these instrumentalities through the unum sanctum mail, and the unum sanctum mail will be tagged as, quote unquote, the U.S. mail. And it implies a contract, so it has their seal on it. So when they stamp those instruments, it implies that is valid. The word taxpayer, as presented in the contractual forms, are fixed hex instruments. I repeat, fixed hex instruments. It implies contract. And when they get a response to it, they assume jurisdiction of the estate of the receiver, who is the target. The word taxpayer, when it's presented through the U.S. mail by the Satanists, mean this in actuality: public official, quote unquote, and fiduciary. Now, the question goes out to everyone who's sharing with us tonight at the official House of Reawakening Minds. Are you aware that when it is received by you through the U.S. mail and a fixed instrument with the word taxpayer, and they apply it to you and you accept it, you are accepted as saying an implied contract that you are, 1, a public official, and 2, a fiduciary. Now, it's important for you to know what both of those words, the phrase and the word, mean, because that's what the word taxpayer actually means. And they have not exposed that to the people. They have not told the people that.
A taxpayer means?
The word taxpayer is a fixed hex trap. I repeat, fixed hex trap for estate transfers, or what is known as conversion. This is one of the greatest sources of their wealth. This is why almost as many people that you can think of that have been operating in the U.S. corporate government are wealthy or have become wealthy. This is a disclosure of one of their greatest hex trap tricks. The word taxpayer means public official and fiduciary. Now, if that fits you and you've been compensating them for that liability, and that burden of that liability has been on you, understand that's by implied contract. But I'm aware, honestly, that most of the people listening to this show not only have not been told that, but also didn't know that. So for those of you who are light workers who are helping the people, we won't do it this show, but the definition of public official and fiduciary must be comprehended, understood thoroughly by anyone who received those fixed hex trap instrument through the unum sanctum U.S. mail. Know that that's what that means.
Like I did a little check on that. What you're talking, I add to it for you. To what you're saying.
Yes.
And just to concur with what you're saying. Okay. So as Grand Sheik is saying, a public official, a taxpayer, the term taxpayer comes from Internal Revenue Code, Social Security Act, the Buck Act, 1935-38, Title 26 USC. And when someone voluntarily identifies as a taxpayer, they are from a status public, as you said, fiduciary trustee, you're agreeing to manage the debts of the straw man, and surety, you're guaranteeing the national debt with your labor.
That's how they convert. Continue.
Right. So a public official, in law, the word taxpayer does not mean a person who pays taxes. Is the title of office, as you said, a public official acting as fiduciary surety for a government trust. This is, like I said.
So for the thinkers out there,
right,
this will give you some factual information to work on to help your families survive the economic attack that's been made by the Satanists on the natural people for the last century or more. That they're not aware of, because even a lot of people who in their mind are conscious don't know how to respond to the Satanists, because they don't know that they're Satanists, and they don't know that's a fixed hex instrument coming from the Church of Satan.
So why is it a fixed hex track? Because one, the contract is created through your own words. I am a taxpayer. This is my social security number.
They trick you into saying
I am a U.S. citizen. But when you repeat those things, if the spell is self-binding,
that's the contract, or the answer to the pact. In other words, the Satanists are offering a pact. They'll send it through the U.S. mail, with the people not knowing that the U.S. acronym also means unum sanctum. So they're actually sending it to or giving what is called authority or power of attorney to the members of the Circle Church and Chancery. The Circle Church and Chancery is its members. Their public view is called the British Accredited Registry, which you know as the Bar Association.
Yeah.
They create those instruments for the Inquisition operations for extorting from the common people under the guise of government. And so that's disclosing one of their traps and why all of them are wealthy. And people don't know that the wealthy, or their wealth, is the transfer of the hereditaments of the common people to them. And then they charge the common people with the responsibility of the theft. And the word taxpayer is for them to agreeing, without being told, that they are the surety or the sacrifice for the debt. This is why our people, like you'll see generations of our people, where our family land is taken from them, stuff that their parents had left them, that their grandmas left them, and the corporate state takes it and they don't understand how it's done, is because everything that is transferred by hereditaments, the corporate state operatives put a lien on it without telling you. And then they transfer that to the members of the Circle Church and Chancery, and that's what's called the national debt. It's a hex trap. So that's a disclosure informing you one of Satan's sources of wealth on the planet.
Now let me share something that I learned. So I had a little class and was talking with Canon Bay the other day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about straw man and all that, and we went again. Like you mentioned, ecclesiastical and and what they're doing and all of these practices. That when the Bible says, I think it's in Matthew, it talks about, and the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. What they're referring to is the fact that when the placenta, when the baby's born, the placenta is not of the mother or the father; it's from the child, and because it's the last thing that comes, it becomes first because they take the placenta and create the straw, the attachment to the straw, based on because now people are getting smart and taking their placenta,
which is also the DNA,
right? So they're taking the DNA, but they're also using that as a justification for creating that straw, based on that being the last becoming first.
Now look at what you just now said. This is very important, Dr. G, because people need to pay attention to details. Now you understand in the articles of Codes Noir, which they present as the Christian Black Codes, because remember, they use the word Christian, but they're really Satanists. Right. So just because they're using the word Christian, don't believe them. They're Cretans. Right. And they use the word Christian, and they converted in what they call the Christian Black Codes. Those codes were adopted into the corporate states of the Unum Sanctum operations, known as the USIA 24, right? And this is why when you see, and this is back to the placenta issue, so the people don't suspect that the quote unquote, the doctors and the Circle Church and Chancery work together. Right. That's why it says the condition of the child in the Christian Black Codes, the condition of the child is that of its mother. And this is where they have contrived the fraud of the straw man, alleging that the mother sold their children to the state. And this is where they claim the wardship tenure operations that they're operating from, and thus the taxpayer tag for the transfer of inheritance. And I know they have not told the people that. So when these people receive these instrumentalities in the mail that have the word taxpayer, know that that's what it actually is. And it's not what the people think it is. Oh, I pay. This is why we've always said, warn people, never use the words or the prepositions of possessive in your conversations about any instrumentality coming from the Circle Church and Chancery, like my birth certificate, my marriage license, my license, driver. Never refer, because they trick you. The people don't know that they get you to cast a spell to secure the surety. It secures yourself as their surety. So because they're forcing these fixed hex instruments onto the people under the guise of government, one of the ways to neutralize the spells that are cast by the Satanists is by saying the corporate state driver's license forced upon me that I use as a pass to travel. I know it's wordy, but what it does, it removes the power of the hex. And this is another reason why they encourage us to abbreviate, because we don't suspect that that's done to protect the hex. But anyway, I'm going to leave that as it is.
Well, again, the fixed hex instrument is a ritual object.
Yes.
That has been prepared, has been charged, like, and things that, some of us conjure and do things. They're doing the same thing, or at least they're trying. Charged and sealed to hold a specific tension. And it's usually one of either binding or blocking, reversing, punishing, disorganizing, disempowering, and cutting
at
influence.
The base of it, it's an implied. See, the deal of it is that they're implying that you're agreeing. That's why they get you to say my. Remove in your language, remove my or any possessive word in relationship to the corporate state when you have to deal with them, because the people don't know that they're Satanists. They didn't know that they're Satanists. That's one of the major issues of disclosure that will be coming, that we've been telling people all the time. We're just being straight with it.
Right.
And so the people, when people who are trying to help humanity, and there's many of them out there doing videos now, both Asiatics and Europeans that are trying to help uplift fallen humanity. This is one of the things that you can study among those who are teaching you. Do you understand? Because remember, it's not a cost, it's a doing.
Right.
See, in other words, if you don't confess support of surety to the Satanists, they have no power. That's why this is one of the reasons why they've always said, Satan has no power except what you give him.
Yeah.
But the power is they trick you into agreeing to the contract, thinking it applies to you. They need you to say my. Because when you say my, that's an acceptance of connection. See, they can throw the hex and they can offer the hex, but you have to sex. This is why they always say, he always knocks on the door and asks for permission to come in. Mm-hmm. That's true. But the deal of it is the people sometimes don't know. So when they send through the U.S. mail a fixed hex instrument with the word taxpayer, and then it has the Sister QV Trust capital letters to the straw that they also created through the mail, and you accept it, from their position, you have bound yourself as surety to the hex. I just wanted to expose that.
Yeah.
So that, because most people, even people who are conscious, aren't conscious of that. They'll be working on certain areas, to help, and then turn around and accept that instrument without a dismissal or rebuttal.
Right. So
rebuttals and estoppels are primal. So because these are things you're going to do in your own study. So estoppel and rebuttal.
Estoppel and rebuttal.
Estoppel. Estoppel and rebuttal. That's not the subject now, but I'm throwing it out there because the people need to start working, because the Satanists are moving quickly because they're trying to injure as many people as they can. As they're being pulled down, they're trying to injure as many people as possible. That's why I disclosed that particular word. So we're not spread out on a whole bunch of things to think of. That word right there is one of their major tools to their wealth. And you counter that, and you'll help dismantle the matrix network and help a lot of other people who don't suspect they're being injured.
Right.
I just wanted, that was very important.
Yeah. So again, the word fixed means that the energy has been set. It means it's been set, it's been locked, it's been anchored, so that the spell continues, just like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
Once they set it, they don't have to do anything. It's like, remember that thing
says
set it and forget it. The guy used to sell the
stuff. But it needs you to activate it.
But it doesn't need them to constantly feed it. They put it out there. And anytime you latch onto it, agree with it, then it's activated.
Yes.
It's a self-sustaining energetic program that they put in.
Yes. And it's work, and it's most of them, their wealth has come from, that's one of the major sources of their wealth. I just want you to know that. And that's why they create what you call extended network corporate entities that are actually extensions of the same, but appear to be separate. This is why whenever you do any research in corporate operations, you find so many of the same people claiming to be certain points of view that are on the boards of all your same major corporate entities that you think are separate because they're all Satanists. And they're wealthy at your expense. That's one of the disclosures of one of their major tools. And then they've used that tool and going to and fro the earth and have devoured nations with it. So I just want you to know that. So anyway, Islam, Moors, peace, and divine love, as you always say, Dr. J, which is appreciated because we need love.
No more.
You know. And so let us begin at the root of our own story, you know, because no people can claim destiny unless and or until they know or remember their origins. While the textbooks of the modern world call Africa the cradle of civilization, Moorish Americans, the true heirs, understand that the lands North and South known today as the Americas are not a new world, but are in fact the western expanse of the same ancient dominion, northwest, southwest of Mexico. And these lands are the primeval soils spoken of in the ancient Hikupta records. The Mississippi River is the Nile by another name. The Grand Canyon holds within its age rocks, memories, and remnants of pyramids and hieroglyphs. And they and they are identical and conceptual related to those found in ancient Hikupta Kemet. And what the contemporary world calls America is, in truth, the western bank of the same ancient Nile Valley culture that gave birth to law, science, jurisprudence, cosmology, grammatication, trigonometry, and navigation. Our ancient Moabite and Canaanite ancestors, which was the ancient, referred to in history as the ancient Moors, were the architects of civilization on both sides of that great river that was later to become what is known today as the Atlantic. And from northwest to southwest of Mexico, we established schools and universities of higher learning, of ether observatories, of maritime guilds, and of principled systems of jurisprudence that later informed and contributed to every empire that rose after us. And when Europe descended into its so-called Dark Ages, it was the Moorish light via the Renaissance that brought them out of darkness into light. It was the mathematics, the medicine, the astronomy, the philosophies, etc., that illuminated the path of Europe to rise. And those who claim now to have discovered civilization were in fact the students of those ancient ones of that is really our forefathers and the true founders. The human tragedy of the Roman Pope's Inquisition was that it inverted, and it was used to invert the natural order. In other words, they countered everything that was divine in order to take power over humanity. This is why through the Unum Sanctum operations, they always claim to own humanity. Thus, the title that they take for themselves as God of the earth. That's where they get that from. All right, so under the papal bulls, such as Dum Diversas and Romanus Pontifex, as an example, the Roman Bishopric Church declared dominion over the lands and the peoples, and that they and these people and lands were not owned by them, and none of the culture was created by them. They co-opted. That was their motto, to co-opt and to cover up. And by decree, the Roman Catholic Church, by deception and by artifice, it converted the living people of the land, Moors, into legal fictions and used that claim as interlopers to transform their inheritances of both the lands and the peoples into property, and converting the nationalities of these people, their pedigree, into commonly known terms in these days as Negroes, Blacks, Indians, and slave, etc.
Colored.
And this was the birth of the conceptual conversion of the corrupted artificial person concepts that is used to this day by the corporate system that now masquerades in these days as quote unquote government. And it is the inhumane, and destructive construct that is the legal face of what we call the Satanic Inquisition Networks, or S.I.N, S.I.N. Because Rome, through its claims of ownership over humanity and the lands, and is that false straw God claim creation that they claim for themselves that belong to the actual Most High Creator. And these networks created by Rome, led in these days by Unum Sanctum Corporation Company, commonly known as United States Corporation Company, survived by changing costumes, changing faces, changing corporate names, expanding tentacles, and hiding via their fixed hex contracts. And from Kazakh to courthouse, from crown to corporation, the same ecclesiastical orders that burned libraries in Cordoba later chartered the companies that colonized the Western Hemisphere, commonly known as the Maghreb. They erased the Mexican from the maps, renamed the land America, and taught our descendants to see themselves as imports instead of as the original heirs, people of the land. And they replaced divine law with statute codes. They replaced consciousness with creed and dogma. And they replaced the sovereign inheritance of the natural people with falsely claimed debt. And that the true heirs, the Moors, is the true Inquisition. That operation is against the Moors. It is both spiritual, it is economic, and it's psychological. This is where people have been experiencing all the psychic attacks that they've been getting. All right. And yet cycles turn. The very earth of a Mexim holds memory, and every tremor of truth is now shaking the world. The exposure of hidden archives, the collapse of fiat currencies, all of that is straw instrumentalities of the Satanists. And the resurgence of indigenous law is the land itself, remembering who it is. And as we awaken, the spell of jurisdictional frauds dissolves. The republic rises again, not through rebellion, but through recollection. And when the rightful heirs stand upright, the usurper's authority collapses under its own weight. And what you see across the planet, what you see governments faltering, you see currencies trembling, you see institutions fracturing. And all of this is not the end of civilization, but the end of corrupt unum sanctum occupation. And the Inquisition's network is being disrupted. Why? Because its very foundation was built upon deception, upon fraud, upon trickery, upon hex instruments. And that deception cannot endure in the presence of divine light. And the restoration of law begins with the restoration of knowledge. And thus the people who were destroyed for lack of knowledge are now being enlightened by knowledge. And the ancient Moabites' descendants, the Moors of the world, must know self, must know land, must know law, and stand as the living testament of divine authority on the lands of Amexem.
Yeah, that's the vibration, Grand Sheik. These revelations are more than history.
Yes.
They're the reboot of, I want to say the reboot of collective consciousness. Everybody wants to talk about the reset, but this is a reboot.
Yes.
They reset, we reboot. All right. The planet itself is debugging the old codes, like you said, getting rid of that. It's there. Every disclosure. Now, today we were watching, this evening before we even came up here, we were watching a press. I guess it was a congressional hearing or some kind of hearing, and those whistleblowers have come forward to literally say that we've been withheld from telling you the truth about these UAPs and stuff like that. So stuff that they don't want us to know that we already know, but they're still playing the denial game. Folks are saying, look, cover our butt so we can tell you, we can tell you the truth, but you got to make sure our families, are safe, protect them.
Who do they have to protect themselves from?
Their own.
These people that have been claiming to be government.
Right.
And what are they discovering? And very few are willing to really say it. They have discovered the face of Satan. Satan has been an open secret. The open secret is that the satanic members are actually the members of government.
Right.
And even people within that structure know it and knew it.
Yeah. And then they're starting to come forth. Like, I didn't know. I don't think we knew until today. And a lot of you have seen that TikTok. They call it that TikTok video where they just released it maybe last year with the thing was flying and you see that they got the little arrow on it. Yeah. Well, we just found out today that the one that took that video was a brother named Chief Wiggins, right? That's a brother that took that TikTok video with that, and so they basically
suppressed that for quite some time.
They suppressed. We didn't even know till today who it was. But the fact of the matter is that the planet is, like I said, debugging and the old. So everything we got regarding the false authority is being demolished. Every disclosure, is the collapse of that false authority. It's the creator pressing, like I said, restore, reboot, not reset. They in the past they had these so-called resets, and we reading books talking about they reset, they mud flooded. We're in a restoring that which was ours and coming from our awakening and our knowledge. So as we move forward, we're going to trace how those same Inquisition structures, the financial, the religious, the political, and the media, how they grew into what we now call the modern matrix, and how their disruption is really accelerating the awakening of humanity. We're waking up, like I said in that poem, all around us, the indigenous awakening. So can't you feel your
block, the more Saturn, the more Uranus strikes that lightning, and more Saturn commands order and is unforgiving and reaps anything
that's coming through with a sickle, right?
That's what it. Okay, that's so
that's the Grim Reaper. That's the Grim Reaper.
Exactly. They can't. The issue is they're not so much disclosing in the sense. And this is why everything that they do simply expands or accelerates the disclosure, because they're no longer fighting just everyday people who had no defenses or had limited defenses. Now they're fighting the elements of the heavens, And specifically for those who understand the cosmology of this thing and the cause and effect of Hermetic law, look at the workings of Saturn and Uranus in partnership now, and how impactful that actually is. And I think by them not really teaching the true culture, that a lot of people who doubt what's going on, if those who know the cosmology culture, would share some of those things with the people, they will see it. And that's why the Satanists are really afraid. They ain't afraid of us. They're afraid of Uranus and Saturn, who are in partnership, kicking their catisters. That's really what's happening. And so now that we have grounded ourselves in the true geography of a Mexican, we can now look at how the Satanists in the Satan Inquisition Networks, S.I.N, evolved into the global structure of control that rules today on the planet, disruptedly. And also you can analyze and figure out their motives of action, etc. And so the word satanic means inversion of divine order. And the Inquisitions and their membership genius was to disguise inversion as civilization. The Inquisition operatives and their orders of institutions and its tribunals never ended. They were merely rebranded. And the same priesthood that burned scrolls in the name of faith now burns economies in the name of freedom.
Yeah.
And each branch of modern society, each construct relative to finances, relative to religions, relative to politics, relative to medias, and relative to medicine and other hexes, acts as a priesthood of this order. And they all operate on three principles: jurisdictional usurpation, energy extraction, and mind control. Jurisdictional usurpation steals land and birthrights through paper, hexed instruments, and through concocted connotative linguistics structures through language. And energy extraction converts the labor of the natural people and belief into their currency, i.e., through the mechanics of electrical circuitry, whether by instrumentalities or by biophysical beings. And so their mind control operations ensures for them that you never question the theft. That's why they rebrand and hide in government, because the people are deceived into thinking that government was there to protect them, when actually the government body was the house of the Satanists.
My goodness. When
together they form the invisible architecture of captivity, and why people didn't, live in captivity and thought they were freed. But anyway,
the bars were so far out. But when you said inversion, Grand Sheik, I felt that in my bones, because from glitch, from the glitch lens, and I can't wait to tell the people about really what glitch is, what glitch is. But from my glitch lens, from my glitch perspective, S.I.N is not just a system; it's a spell of reversal. Everything that was real was turned into a symbol, and everything sacred became taxable.
And that's right. Why artifice, the straw. In other words, straw man, artificial law, color of authority, color of office, all of those legal law terms that people who study jurisprudence are familiar with. Now you understand their proper placement.
Right. But that, the network, it thrives by feeding on what we call unconscious consent. You pay a bill, you sign a contract, you recite a creed. I went to the senior center and joined the senior center, y'all, with my friends, because I'm a senior. And we went with, they have lunch there, and they have a chef, a brother. That's the chef, so it's not a meal zone. It was a real. So they were like, "You gotta go because he cooks real food. He's a real chef." And I was taken aback because we stood up before we got to eat. You stood up for the pledge. For the pledge, I was like, "Oh shit, I ain't pledge allegiance." What? I was like, "Oh my!" But you got to know. If you got to say something, you better say the right thing, because what comes out of your mouth, you're signing a contract with it.
Word is
like
power.
I say, so every time you do, when you recite something like that, and that energy transfers from the living to the fictitious, and that's how the matrix eats.
That's how it gets life.
That's how it gets fed.
We get life.
Right. But but an awakened thought, it breaks that feeding loop. Or you talk about the feedback loop, the feeding loop. The moment you say no more unconscious consent, the algorithm it loses access to your life force.
Exactly.
You got to know what to say no to. And let's keep it plain. This isn't like superstitious. It's circuitry, because the human body, you already said it, is, and we know it. And I work with energy, is an electrical instrument.
Exactly.
And fear and ignorance are low voltage states. They're
That's
low
why they use it.
And coherence, they are high frequency. Knowledge and coherence rather, is high frequency. We want to be high frequency beings. The Inquisition was electrical colonization. That's what it was.
And it was they use more advanced techniques than they've written in history in order to control the minds of the people to think that they were coming from what you call
altruistic, some altruistic place.
Yes, or how do you say, some colonial, very base position. When actually they were using ancient advanced technology, always ahead. This is one of the keys on how they've been ruling the world, because they have stolen the knowledge of ancient Egypt, which was extremely advanced, and hidden it from the public, and has actually been governing secretly with it, using it to the negative.
Right.
Then rewriting history as if we were on a linear path of evolutionary development, when actually in the background they were already studying ancient crafts that was already millions of years old.
That far exceeds what they even released to this day. And like I said,
they still don't. Much of which they still don't understand.
Yeah. So, again, the Inquisition was electrical colonization. It was a hijacking of our frequency. And they did that. They did it through faith. They did it through, the religion, the finance. And they definitely did it and continue to try to do it through fear. Every time you look,
people are waking up now.
Something is, So what we call an awakening is really a regrounding.
Yes.
Plugging our consciousness back into source and blowing the fuses of sin. Right.
Yes.
I just,
because it ain't what they thought it was.
Listen, it's not what you think. I mean, I did today, and I know it's just I sent this to Cynthia, but something I had created maybe 10 years ago, I recreated, and look, what does it say?
It's right on time.
It says unplug from the matrix, replug into your reality. I mean, it's got the plug. I made this like 10 years ago. I said, well, it works.
But that's the nature of things. This is back to, a lot of times people think, as you know, I've always argued, I've never held the position that the spiritual world was separate from what we're doing. So I've always said that civics is spiritual instruction. One of the reasons why they disconnected is so that they could rule the earth.
Right.
Because this is why they've always falsely promoted the misconception, deliberate, that there was a separation of church and state, so that people would never suspect that the Satanists were really running the church and the state in partnership. See, because that's what helped keep the people asleep, because they thought that the politicians were not priests. They thought that the politicians were protecting us from hexes of a corrupt priesthood. And the corrupt priesthood were pretending to protect the people from corrupt politicians when they're both partners and always have been. And this is why, again, like when you go into the questionary scroll
Mm-hmm.
of the Moorish Science Temple and the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, Old Canaanite Temple, and Drew Ali see Jesus means justice,
Mm-hmm.
then you understand why they lynched justice as well as Jesus. Then when you look at the great matriarch, right, that's referred to in the Septuaginta, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ruth, the great matriarch. And so the house of Ruth, her heir is Yeshua, who they rewrite in history as Jesus. And so now you know the motive of the Romans lynching justice and Jesus. And thus the descendants of the ancient Moabites were to suffer both the lynching and the economic depravity that you're speaking of today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so exactly when you look at and take the financial system as an example, right? The Roman Church once sold indulgences, right? And
Mm-hmm.
now the banks sell credit. And both of them promise relief from guilt. One of the claims of relief is spiritual, and one of their claims is economic. And the birth certificate created by them, dealing with little people's sacrifice also, became the new baptismal record, binding each soul to the maritime registry created by them of commerce. And through that document, the corporate state of the Roman order of the Circle Church and Chancery claims ownership of the child's future for every loan created by them, and that such loans are merely the monetization of the natural people's own bond, actually, and the artificial debt projected by them, and the taxpayer issue that we presented of what it really is, a fiduciary, is a modern original sin. And the faithful blindly spend their lives tithing, taxing,
Being taxed.
to the system of Rome, thinking there was a separation of church and state.
Yeah, you know.
And believing redemption will come through payment. And keep this in mind. Then you go to Constitution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you'll understand why the politicians are always anti-constitutionalists, right? So through the Constitution, it says, hold on. It says, no state shall coin anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or make anything but gold or silver coin for payment and debt.
Right.
Therefore, no debt can be made or paid without nature's divine gold and silver coin that's adopted in the Constitution. And thus, an implication that a debt is paid, and this is why it's in perpetuity, and why they've been murdering people who are really the creditor, because they know it can't be paid with the Circle Church and Chancery's private commercial paper instrument that they've been lying, because the devil's a liar, to the people is a dollar, when they know that the dollar is a gold and silver coin that has fixed weight established by law, not by legality. So they do legal to subvert the law, because the purity of the Constitution of lawful denomination for the republic's currency is silver, and that's 15 grains to 1 grain of gold. And that, in its coinage, is what constitutes the word dollar, which comes from Yakum Thaler. So they're lying, and then they're lying, and then they're lying, and then they're tricking the people with hex fixed instruments and sending it through mail with a seal on it, which implies a contract, and then the people don't counter that they have been projected or hexed with the word taxpayer and think it applies to them, and thus the conversion to the alleged, not real, debt that damn don't exist, never did exist.
Well, you know, that's the cruel reality of sin, which we're talking about.
Yes.
Turning divine inheritance into monthly installments. It even, it trained us to worship the collectors and fear them. But I tell people, the Matrix don't need your blood anymore. They draft it directly, like how everything they got your automatic payments. But when we awaken to the fact that we are the creditors, that every signature that you place on paper carries the authority of a sovereign being, then you start, repossessing your own energy. That's the revolution, not storming the temple, but turning the lights back on in your own house. Like I used to tell the people that were upset when I was pastoring, I got to pay my tithes. And then they wanted to get a loan from the church. I was like, well, why didn't you pay I got to pay my electric, but I have to pay my tithe. No, baby, pay your electric, because you're not getting it back from the church once you gave it. You see what I'm saying? So if you need to pay your electric, you got to keep your own lights on. So, but I'm saying that's serious. They were so afraid by what was being preached that God was going to get them, that the devourer was going to suck up their life force, and they didn't realize it was being sucked into the pit called the pulpit.
And this is again, Dr. G, as you've always worked when you were doing the things across the street with teaching and Jay coming in, why they particularly the politicians even today, and even the so-called civic leaders in the heads of the church, the bishopric of the church, who were charged by international law. I just want to interject this because people don't know this, that the churches and the civic groups was notified by the international community with the responsibility to say these very things, that the United States corporation company and not the natural people are bound to the debt. And it was admitted also in the House Representatives with 192. It's why I've always interject that. So for those of y'all can look that up and see that the debt belongs to them and not to you. And they're the taxpayer, not you. I just want to interject that.
Yeah, that's true. Inversion. Again, we've been talking about inversion. Mm-hmm. So when you look at what's happening in the world today, right now, like I said, banks are closing without warning. We went to the mall today, looked like we were at a abandoned,
all these buildings, huge restaurants, empty, beautiful buildings,
empty, just what's going on. But the
only activity was the cars in the lot directed to small businesses that
like
were still
T-Mobile,
there,
but
and everything else was like silent.
Right, everything's dead. Everything's
it looked like a Hollywood. How do you say a Hollywood set?
And this has happened before. We know that this is not new. It's happened before. It's just that we got to live through this one. We got to live to see. We're looking at and seeing these things happening that happened with our ancestors, of those that came before our predecessors, the ones that came before us went through this. They had, beautiful buildings, and they had wealth, and they had security but what we need to do, what you don't learn from, you repeat. You suffer through, and then you repeat. And we don't want to do rinse and repeat. We want to grow, learn, study, and go above and beyond that.
Yes.
So what's happening, with currencies, even, people going with these digital currencies, they're losing values overnight, and they will. That's exactly what they're going to do. That's
that was another trick method of extortion.
The people,
and people don't know that was started by the NSA. 50 years ago.
Yeah.
People think that's new.
Yeah.
It was set up already for part of what they call reset. It was a trick. See, in other words, the straw operations were dying. They knew it. So they looked through the looking glass and they prepared that to extract, because remember, they were trading the private commercial paper of the Jesuit order of the Circle Church and Chantry for people's hard assets. And they've been getting it. And now they need the last part. So they created what they refer to as the digital currency over 50 years ago, NSA, right? And to extract both land and resource from the people. And they've been doing this around the planet. Keep this in mind. The nations of the earth knew what was coming. This is why they stopped buying U.S. treasuries. So they're not informing the public what they was doing since they were, sacrificing the public anyway. This is why, so they for that extraction, this is what they did in 2008. And they act like what's happening in 2020 was separate. All of those are connected.
Folks didn't learn from
that.
Now
They're doing it again.
Yeah, like I said, they didn't learn from that. Yes. Now I remember with the housing alleged, housing crash, because I was, working in housing, and that was a bail-in for the banks as opposed to what we thought it was. Because remember, they gave them, they brought them out
now,
of whatever.
This is what we have to keep in mind, Dr. G. We have to stop separating the banks, the government.
Well, they pay themselves. They will compensate themselves.
We got to look at it. We got to stop. We got to recognize this fact. Let's get this very clear. The banks are the bench of the Pope.
Right.
So when you tithe to the bank, you're really tithing to the U.S. Unum Sanctum Pope Bishopric. What we have to start doing in our knowing is stop allowing them to project separation in our minds on two fronts. Us separating from each other and them being separate from all the corporate entities that they created, which are extension arms of the Circle Church and Chancery. Now, the world, knowing, Seed and Company, New York, all this whole matrix that they created, right? That they were really connected. This is why nations have been collapsing who bought into the code of what they call the petrodollar. That's another code of the same thing. So the code of the petrodollar, the code of the digital dollar was another method of getting something for nothing. And so the instrumentality is presented as, but not being money to the general public, but is never and never was and will never be money to them. It is the conversion instrumentality under implied contract to convert your hard assets to them. And then they give you now it was not only paper that was worthless. Now they're giving you nothing digital that just simply disappears. No different than when you said to me, my computer just went black.
Yeah.
Right. So what happens with anyone? Because remember how many people got their so-called digital stuff on computers, phones, and everything. Their life disappears with it. Now, they have to go back to the creators of these same instruments to try to glean, quote unquote, save their digital life. And do you think that these people who are all part of this corporate, because all of them are backdoored, because remember, that's why they backdoored them. That's probably what happened to your computer.
Wow.
You probably didn't dawn on you. That's what it was.
Who knows? But I know the feeling. I mean, I like others, we put into this, I lost 15 grand like that. They just wiped it one day, it was there, and the next day it was gone. And it wasn't 15 that they gave me, is what I put to get more.
Yeah.
So yes, I know how that goes. But these are not random economic crises.
And they're not accidental.
They're like you said, feedback loops collapsing. That what we're seeing though, because the matrix is losing integrity because too many souls have opted out of
the integrity was the illusion maintained by people who didn't know they're dealing with Satanists.
But now they know. Now they know, and so they opted out of this unconscious servitude, and energy's being reclaimed, and the system can't compute that level of sovereignty. They didn't plan for this. That's not the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah, they're punching the vampires in the tooth.
That's not the way it's supposed to be. Yeah.
And so the dogmatic religions and the pseudo politics presented by them are the next arms of the Inquisition, Satanic Inquisition Network, and governed under their Inquisition operations. And belief became the jurisdiction that they operated in, because that's how they have power over the people. And then they change your faith to change your citizenship.
Sheik, I'm going to interject this. When we telling everybody, because I've jumped on it too, everybody get this foreign currency, get that get the Bolivar, get the and all the time, all of it is fiat.
It's interconnected. This is back to what I said before.
So we've taken their fiat and transferred it into getting somebody else's fiat that may not ever be worth anything.
Didn't we say for years? People have to understand why, and we've said this over and over again. The Jesuit order of the U.S. Unum Sanctum operations that's why they got despots, or what you call plants, in the nations. They've already gone to and fro the earth, devouring nations. How have they done it? With their fixed, hexed instrument. And I've always said, every nation that has adopted the U.S. Jesuit fake dollar debt instrument into their treasuries are failing. This is why the nations started doing that. In other words, what we're trying to make the people aware of, they need to understand why the nations of the earth started BRICS as an example. Mm-hmm. And as you know, even a couple of European nations now trying desperately to become part of BRICS because they already see what's happening. Mm-hmm. And they're part of the so-called G7 network. They're trying because they already know they're being sacrificed.
They did a movie this year at the beginning of the year with I forgot the woman that was playing, like she was a female president. She was the sister that plays in a lot of, she played in as the lawyer or whatever, but there was a G something summit, and they were trying to convince the other countries to go along with this U.S. plan, and these other people were terrorists was trying to kill them all, but they look like the bad guys, the other people, when the real bad guys was those coming together to try to get people to come in.
The same thing that's happening now is that the world has woken up that what we've been telling people for decades, the U.S. is not a country. Right. It's a Jesuit corporation run jurisdictionally and legally, not lawfully, legally, by the Circle Church and Chancery. We've been saying it for decades. And people are now becoming aware that is indeed the fact. But it's sort of like when the people themselves is dawning on them that indeed the masses of the people who claim to be government are actually the Satanists. So they can't use their dogmatic religious belief systems and keep telling people, Satan's over there, the devil's over there. And he's been right in their face all the time. And the injury has become so blatant and open around the world that they can't deny it. It's not that people didn't know in their hearts. Like you said, they were fearful. Mm-hmm. But in their hearts, they already knew it. It's just that it's injuring so many people now on the planet that it can't be denied. And so people have to start looking at this realistically. In other words, looking Satan in the face lest they be destroyed, lest they be devoured, meaning that acting like you don't see them ain't going to save you. You just, from their position, you're an agreeable sacrifice. And people need to know that's why they're running these wars.
Yeah.
This is why right now, that's why they're going to Venezuela. That's why they went to Cuba before. In other words, the pattern has never changed.
Economic hitmen.
The pattern has never changed. They change the name, rebrand, change the name, rebrand, and go to and fro the earth, devouring nations. The nations recognize that if they don't stand up now, they're going to be devoured. And the people here need to know what they're looking at. Right? And so the religion and politics are the next arms of that network. And so the papal bulls were the first passports of that empire. And those same documents evolved into the civil codes and, i.e., many of the colored constitutions still under ecclesiastical trust. And so modern politics on the planet is merely the layman's priesthood managing the same corrupted estate. In every election presented for the naive public is a ritual of reaffirmation, a public confession that the subject consents to be governed by the fiction, and thus the power of the Satanists via their straw man, straw finance, straw money, straw law, straw jurisprudence, and straw government. And it's up to the people to start confessing their own.
Yeah, so and that's why so many people don't feel spiritually drained. I think after every election cycle, they just have one, the midterm elections, and people are freaking out. They have
always look for salvation.
They say a communist mayor. Anyway, they don't realize that they just participated, however, in what they call what's a mass sacrament. You were talking about it. It's pledging their will to the very system that feeds on it.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? From
still looking for the corrupt Satanists to undo what the corrupt Satanists did.
Yeah,
over and over again. Redundancy. What is redundancy in the sense of someone trying to fix something wrong that's obvious than dismantling?
Well, doing the same thing.
Sign of
over and over and over. Yeah, you're only gonna get the same result. But from our glitch perspective, religion and politics are twin polarities of the same battery. One keeps you praying for deliverance, while the other one keeps you, voting for it. Whatever. People think they're gonna get it through the politicians. And you know what poly means many.
Yeah.
Politics. Yeah. Ticks.
They're suckers.
Blood suckers.
Parasites.
So we have many blood suckers, and these are the people that we trust, right? Meanwhile, the current of your creative power flows out, and it sustains this very thing that we need to disconnect ourselves from. And the moment you internalize governance, when you realize that you have to self-govern, when you become your own moral and civic authority, you unplug, like my little thing I did from that battery, and you start generating independent current
that is in you naturally.
Right. And I don't mean that we should not come
government within.
Right. And the government within should be able to attach itself with like-minded beings to be self-governing together, because that's the problem with us. We're not going to go there, but that's what I call, energetic civil disobedience. You obey divine order, but not
in basic civics, they call that reclaiming your sovereign right.
Well, yeah, but
that already belonged to the people anyway. It's just been stolen. Understand that.
Right. You should be, and we should be, obeying divine order and not decrees of deception. You still live lawfully, but by the higher law of cause and effect, not those lower statutes of exploitation. I'm talking about obedience to truth over tradition. And that's what we got to, because a lot of folks are stuck in what was, or what mama them told them. They only knew what they knew. But you're so much more light now that shown on. We're looking back at things that they didn't see when they were in it.
And then you look at, right, the
Right.
Satanists, right?
Right.
And then you look at the Satanist meeting in Philadelphia in 1854 with Horace Greeley
Mhm.
and the determined control of the media that the people need to understand. Different rebranding, same operations. And so the cathedral of modern mind control has its origin there. And so the term broadcast literally means to cast broadly and in sowing seeds. And so words are seeds, and you repeat those words and they become the crops of dogmatic belief. And in the Middle Ages, the pulpit controlled the scripture. And today, the screen controls the narratives. And the same elite families and the Satanists that funded papal crusades now fund the news network. And their purpose is unchanged, their mission is unchanged and unmoved. And they maintain false perceptions of inferiority among the heirs of a maxim and dependency among the nations. And yet the very tools they built are now betraying them. And digital transparency exposes the manipulators even as they speak.
Yeah, so I was trying to tell people that typing it in there, but the movie that I was referring to before I go further was called G20. It came out this year, and it starred. Is that the word?
Mm-hmm.
Starred Viola Davis. Viola Davis was
yes,
the president,
yes.
and I think Anthony
I
Anderson played her husband. It's a Netflix movie. It's called G20.
Mm-hmm.
Look at it. Really, look. Check it out, because it's what we're talking about. Some of what we're talking about. But as you were saying, though, the reason why I love teaching, I love technology is it's even with all its traps. It's really the Inquisition's undoing. Look at TikTok.
They expanded the trap for us.
Right. They built that web.
Expanded the web.
Right, to catch
and
us.
Are stepping in the web.
And the creator flipped it into a mirror. Every live stream like this is a glitch in their broadcast. Every time somebody young or old, melanated or not, goes on TikTok and spreads a truth, and even if you don't know it's truth, you got something that you're now going to look into.
And when they try to block, they just expose themselves even more.
Right.
Continue,
because we're creating our own frequency now. That's what we're doing. Before we were operating, under theirs. So when we say, House of Reawakening Minds, we mean minds that think, that not only think, but they speak and they stream. We try to stream the truth. So each one of these words, hopefully it awakens you. It uploads new code into the collective. Really, that's what it. That's the real social network. Souls that are sinking in true frequency. That's what we endeavor to do here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we have to confront the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers municipal, and their medicinal bio network of the medicine order and the science and the twin laboratories of the network. And in ancient Maxim, healing was alignment with nature in the ancient world with us.
Right.
And imbalance was corrected through rhythm, through diet, through sound, and through breath.
They actually had places like in cave type places that were carved out in a way that the sound for sound healing, where you could just lay in these spaces and then harmonically and energetically the healing will come through sound. And we're getting back, people are talking about med beds and
that's
things.
Why old buildings were designed actually like that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right. To take the energy and
they tore them down,
transmute it into healing. And now we have flat roofs, and they make sure their houses got cathedral ceilings and vaulted this so that the energy can flow like it's, and they put us in boxes.
That's why the Inquisitionists criminalized natural medicines and declared the physical body a battlefield. And, and for many people who know, remember Dr. Wyatt in Philly.
Oh, yeah.
And others, a very good friend of ours, right?
Right.
That when he made travel, they got rid of him too. So the Inquisitionists, the Satanists, have been murdering actually all of them. As a matter of fact, remember his daughter came visit us, stayed with us.
Right.
So, and wish the best for them, protecting them from the Satanists too.
Right.
And so the term pharmacy came from pharmakia, which is sorcery.
Yeah.
And thus the modern science became the priesthood of matter, denying spirit and selling synthetic salvation. And yet, even within that false and corrupted domain, truth is breaking through. Resonance, frequency therapy, herbal alchemy, all ancient Moorish arts are re-emerging in spite of the works against the people by the Circle Church and Chancery and the Rockefeller pharmacias activities against the bio of the people.
Exactly. And the glitch is showing up even in hospitals and laboratories, because people are questioning their injections and whether they need them, what's in it, what the ingredients are, and what are they're listening to those disclaimers going, well, the side effects are more injurious than the thing that I'm supposed to be taking the thing for, the potential
they're
side
creating
effects.
the sicknesses,
right,
and selling the alleged healing.
Right. So they're realizing that the same hands, like you said, are selling the illnesses, creating the illnesses, selling the cure. So healing is returning to consciousness. Folks are, people look at me. And, I got friends that, we're around the same age, but you can't tell it necessarily. But what's the difference between me and them? It's probably my mentality, my lifestyle. You're you defy, I know you're ill a few months back, but by and large, you're about to be 80, and you can put you up against, 50, 60-year-old, and, you still can.
I still play ball.
Okay, see, but when you detox your mind, the body follows. And that's what that's the journey I've been on since I met you, 14 years ago. When you remember that, your energy, you stop outsourcing your wellness. You don't leave it up to anybody else. That's why everything that I do.
The worst thing we did was trust the members of the pharmaceutical world, not knowing they were really Rockefeller's biomatrix operations. Mainly was 1942 in that area.
I don't know
when they solidified the operations, and that's back to the corporation operations of the network of S.I.N.
Right. Wow.
Because they're all networked. And this is back to people thinking that those corporate entities are separate, and all of them. And as soon as you do the research, their extension arm goes to the Circle Church and Chancery and to the Vatican.
Well, but as I was saying, though, that's why healing is jurisdictional. When you reclaim your temple, you reclaim your territory. The body of a Maxim begins with the body that you live in. It's this one. This is your body is that temple. So you can't, like I said, outsource it. You can't leave it up to anybody. And if you do go to someone, make sure that he or she is someone who has a holistic background, who's about, natural wellness and is not a charlatan or a quack gonna give you some snake oil. But most of the things that we need to do to live long and healthy is so natural.
It's right around.
It's right. When we had certain things happen, how in the backyard of House of Reawakening Minds, all the whole backyard turned to an herb.
And that's why they've been, killing a lot of some of the most common and healthy plant life that in every area. According to the culture, people should know within the 300-mile area, nature has always placed both food and herbs for you that grow naturally, etc. And so that Moors is part of the exposure and disclosure of the architecture of Satan's Inquisition Network, S.I.N. And it's a network of inverted institutions designed to extract, to convert, and to recycle human energy. And that system survived centuries because men mistook fiction for fact. But as the heirs are awakening, their fiction falters. And the lawful remedies begin with recognition, begin with the power of remedy lies in comprehension and cohesive understanding.
And comprehension is the highest form of healing, because once you see the network, you stop being its battery. Like I said,
once you see it, you can't unsee it.
That's what this whole conversation is about. Learning to identify the framework of captivity and choosing
consciousness over it.
Instead. So as we move forward, hopefully, I don't know if we'll get through all this tonight, but we want to bring this conversation to the tangible world.
Yes.
Like money, markets, metals, and de-dollarization that signals the return of real value, really. But because even the gold and the silver are talking now, and what they're saying is the illusion is over. Yes. I'm so glad you told me, back in 2012 or so, start collecting silver. Start to get some gold, so I'm glad that I listened, and I'm glad that Quicksilver fell in my lap, because it did a lot for me for that in that respect. Yes. But it just needs to be. What is that? Can you all right, what are you pointing to?
This one right here.
Right here?
Up here, right.
Right there. Can you speak to how this system is spread over all the Americas, not just us, but North America, Central, South America? So we are all Moors here in the Americas and should not see us as a divided people.
And this is back to where the first order of the Star of Man presented to the ancient Canaanite Moabites of the West, when Drew said the first point on the star is love. And so that has been always promoted by the Moors of North America. Glad that the brothers and sisters of the South recognize that. It's not something that needs to be introduced to us. That was always our position. That the people are beginning to recognize that we are one is very important.
Right.
So to understand the present collapse of the systems that has taken place, Moors must remember that the economics, the jurisdictions are one and the same. And money is not paper. Money is gold and silver coin. And it is jurisdiction in the physical form. And whoever issues the medium of exchange governs the people who use it. This is how they've gotten over on the people. And so the so-called fiat currency used today is merely the latest manifestation of the old ecclesiastical bulls and bullas of the corrupted priesthood, the same ones who murdered the prophets, etc. And so the same Romans who lynched Jesus are the same Romans who lynch justice today. And their faith-based instrumentalities were backed by false beliefs and never by substance. This is how they've been converting hard assets through their fictions. And this is the basis of their wealth. That's why they've been calling you taxpayer. Wow. And when the European powers came to Mexim under papal license, they did not bring gold. They brought credit, a total fiction. And they declared our lands, quote unquote, discovered by them. And declared our people lost at sea. That's the papal sea. And then they hypothecated
the Holy See.
Both the lands and the people into collaterals for their false use of usury and usufructuary, and then falsely claimed it to be our national debt. And the Bank of England, the Dutch East India Company, and later the Federal Reserve are all children of the same Satanists, the Roman Curia. And their ledgers replaced the church's confessional books, and interest became the new tithe, taxpayer. And every so-called dollar is really a certificate of bondage. And it is redeemable only in the labor of the people, because it's not a certificate tied to money. It's tied to the labor of the people. And it bears the seal of the unum sanctum operations under the United States Corporation Company, which is not a country. And this is which is in itself a municipal corporation operating under foreign charter. And this is why each financial crisis is accompanied by political theater. The puppets and the puppetry projected by them via their corporate government performs repentance before the same bankers who are really the managers for the bench of the Pope, and who fund both sides. That's why they do, because they're really extensions of the same operation. The alleged separation is only to fool the people. And yet beneath that drama and theater, a lawful correction is occurring, not because they want it to, it's because they can't stop it. And so the nations of the earth are quieting, exiting the demon dollar. That's a pseudo dollar, because it's not a dollar, pseudo dollar system, and returning to metals and to natural trade. And this is the natural reassertion of true jurisprudence, i.e., and the jurisdictions attached thereto, back to substance and back to the law.
Yeah. That's the hidden.
That's the resurrection.
That's the hidden resurrection, Grand Sheik. The soul of value rising from the paper grave, right? From my glitch perspective, what you just described is consciousness converting from faith-based economics back to frequency-based economics. Fiat money is faith without substance. It runs on a collective belief, right? But gold and silver, by contrast, vibrate with the frequency of divine geometry. They carry the harmonic resonance of the sun and the moon, solar and lunar consciousness balanced in matter. When humanity begins to favor tangible value again, it's not greed, it's coherence. The planet is returning itself to real vibration. So we're watching the nervous system of the matrix short circuit. Just we talked about earlier, but the stock market spike and crash because belief is no longer enough to power the illusion. The collective psyche is unplugging from the false god of currency. People sense that wealth is internally realized. They have their own personal values, and that creativity and awareness and just being able to be free in that meant those are the true gold. The real value is in what comes from and through us. You know what I mean? So as more of us hold that vibration, physical gold responds. It'll respond to what but we got to get away from. Well, I'm not even gonna talk about that. The price is rising because consciousness is magnetizing integrity back into form. That's what's going on.
Yes, exactly. So
yeah, it's happening, and we're wondering like, wow. I mean, I wish I had gotten more gold. But by one little gold coin,
silver's the work.
Well, I got
remember the silver, the gold is storage,
right?
The silver is what's going to be the main transfer. That's why I told you silver.
Well,
and even what they admit to is less than half.
You mean value wise?
Even when they're talking about the rise, what they admit to is even less than half.
Right. Yeah.
So the de-dollarization issue movement on the planet is a decolonization. They're using the word de-dollarization. It's really a decolonization. So they use the word de-dollarization to fool the public of what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's what Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes. And so it's not a rebellion. Yes, it is.
of
It's
sorts,
a remedy.
it is. Yeah.
Yes, because the nations trade directly in gold, oil, and digital assets backed by substance. And the nations are restoring the law of equivalent exchange. In other words, substance for substance.
Right.
And so the very principles written into nature. And in Moorish jurisprudence, this is justice. And so justice is restored. Thus, Jesus is resurrected. And is resurrected in commerce, in equal value for equal value. And so the true dollars collapse, or the petrodollars collapse, is therefore not punishment, it is purification. And the counterfeit of the Satanists cannot coexist with the genuine gold of the heavens and the earth.
Well, and metaphysically, that purification is fire.
You got that right.
The inflation they fear is actually the heat of transmutation. And the false symbols, they're burning off so that the essence can shine through.
Like refining.
Refiners go. Every economic tremor that's going on is really like an alchemical stage,
Yes.
and humanity's being forced to confront attachment to illusion. Though some of us still stuck there, but those who identified with the fiction, they panic. Those who align with truth, that's who rises. That's why I tell people, don't just buy gold, become gold. Refine yourself until your presence holds intrinsic value, and then once you do that, you're immune to manipulation. You can't be manipulated like what they could do on the markets. You set your own intrinsic value.
Yes. Great.
Right.
And so law follows consciousness. Right. And so when the natural people awaken, law must conform to their vibrations. And this reemergence of local, thus the reemergence of local trade, of local community currencies, and mutual aid societies signals the rebirth of the republic. And these are embryonic forms of self-governance. For the true wealth and jurisdictional independence and the ability to transact, to educate, and to heal without foreign imposed satanic licenses.
Wow. Yeah. Well.
And from a point of the divine nature of evolution, the lawful realignment unfolds. And from that, you will notice that the theater playing out in Washington District of Columbia, Roman goddess, etc., is demonstrated with acts that are taking place. And so Donald Trump is no longer sitting as the corporate president of the United States Corporation Company, yet he continues to operate in the capacity of commander-in-chief.
Is that why they changed the name of the, was it Department?
Yes.
Was it Defense
Department of War? Because it's the same Department of War is what created the conversions fiction operations of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and also the Bureau of Refugees and abandoned land, freedmen and abandoned lands that the people know as the freedmen. All those venues, that the misconceptions of their purpose, that has deceived the people is dissolving.
Wow.
And so Donald Trump being the commander-in-chief, which is a military position within the de facto structure. And that distinction itself exposes the split between the corporate government and the lawful government. And the stage performance of the politics that we see is separate from the higher jurisdiction of law. And what we are witnessing is a slow, visible transition from fiction to function, and from colorable office to constitutional order.
Yes, and you can feel that frequency moving through our community. So people are bartering services, they sharing crops. I saw a brother come on YouTube the other day, and he was showing, I don't know where he was. I don't even know if he said where he was, but he basically said, I'm growing food. And if anybody needs anything, I got, you come up here and get what you need, get what you. So people are growing their own and sharing crops. They're forming cooperatives, and they're returning to earth and to craft, doing things, because those things that I always said, the Lord, when the scriptures talk about the Lord give, whether it's scripture or not, the saying that the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, I see it a whole different light, because not the Lord God, but we talking about like the Lord, like you always say, of London. They have given so many things and put so many trinkets and baubles in front of our faces, and now they're taking them away, and people don't know how to live naturally and cleanly, and you got to get back to that. So returning to the earth, and that's the Maxim template. That's how we reinstall ourselves. We're remembering that economy means house law. It means house law, and the house is our planet. This is where we are. We know that they allegedly said that they reset and got rid of, but with that knowledge, we need to do all that we can do within our power to make sure that never happens again. If we learn from it, like I said earlier, we are not destined to repeat it. It just becomes a historical lesson to never have been repeated again. But if we go through this again, then our children have to figure this thing out, and that shouldn't be. That shouldn't be. See, the Inquisition, the Inquisition's paper empire is fading, because it's they call us paper terrorists. They've been terrorizing us on paper.
Yes, from day one.
Yeah, but the organic network of hearts and hands, that's what's rising. Folks realizing that if we don't do this together, we won't do this at all. When you circulate truth and generosity and skill, and when I talk skill, there's so much skill and talent amongst us. It's hard to not know that we were the builders of civilization.
Yes,
we are some of the most talented. The brother that's working back here on my deck.
Beautiful.
Oh my God.
Beautiful.
Just he visioned this, and I'm saying, what he said, I dreamt about it, so I'm gonna make it. I'm creating it like that, and he's doing it. But we have so much talent and skill amongst us. We can rebuild and build up and build better. They talk about buy back, build back better. We can do that.
Yes,
we can do that. When you circulate truth to generosity, and you mint a currency, and yet that no empire can counter. They can't counterfeit who we are.
Yes, right.
They can lie to us and make us counterfeit ourselves. But when you know who you are, that makes all the difference in the world.
You got that right twice.
That makes all the difference in the world. And we need to get it together and start working together. I call it islanders and weebies. It's a whole bunch of islanders. They live on the land of I by themselves, think that everything is but who, because they did it. I did this, I did that, I said this. But then we got weebies. We be working together. Weebies build bridges and communities. Islanders are marooned, if you will.
Yes.
So anyway.
So anyway, the Moors of the land must now turn their lawful insights and sights upon the internal machinery of the corporate system and understand to dismantle that which is not good. And what appears in the news as quote unquote budget crisis or quote unquote government shutdown is ritual. It is an echo of the old Inquisition councils that met to decide how much of the people's energy could be extracted for another cycle. And the same pattern now functions through the three primary agencies of modern control, which I call the 3-1 or the 3I Atlas: investment, infrastructure, and indebtedness inflation agencies. And together they manage the illusions and the illusions of prosperity while engineering dependency and theft. And the investment atlas controls the flow of pension funds, of endowments, and of trusts, trillions of dollars that rightfully belong to the natural peoples of Amexem. And the infrastructure atlas claimed jurisdiction over land and resources, converting public estates into private concessions under a color of law, under a color of authority, and under a color of office. And the alleged indebtedness atlas operates through central banking and interest in ensuring that every gain is matched by greater obligations. And these bodies are the secular descendants of the medieval executors.
Yeah, I remember when you told us what an exchequer chamber was. I don't know, in case they don't know. And I know
it's hell.
Hell.
Yeah.
And where was it? Where is it? Where was it in that
beneath
time?
the church?
Beneath the church.
That's what it was.
They would put the debtors down there, right?
Yep.
When they went to hell, it was the extra.
And they're referred to by Jesus and others as the money changers. Now they call the bankers, etc. In newer times.
And they also called the banksters.
Yeah. Yes.
Like
the bench of the Pope.
The banksters.
Yes, what it is. And so now, as this construct or apparatus of fraud begins to crack, the public is shown a performance to distract from the structural shift that has taken place. And you see it in the constant theaters and constant theater of partisan struggle, executive orders, investigations, indictments. And these dramas are not governance. They are symbolic negotiations over jurisdictions and claims of jurisdiction. And many perceive that certain former officials still move within military or strategic roles while no longer holding civil office. And this was never separate. That's because it was never really separate. People need to understand that.
Well, when you say that, what do you mean? That
the concept that they had that these people operating in government and in the corporate sectors were separate. The same way the misconception that the church and the state were separate. They're all extensions of U.S. Inquisition operations of colonial. And this is why the world stopped buying their bonds, because they know there's no separation. In other words, in order to dismantle the Satanists, they got to unbond themselves from the executors' chambers and their instruments.
Wow.
They're not separate, never were. The illusion is dying. Thus, the separation illusion is dying. And the people see Satan is that network that they thought these things were separate. The illusion is dying.
Whether those corporations were being funded, then I would.
That's why they were always funding. That's why they always rescue them. Okay. They're rescuing themselves. There's still people in the process of realizing that they have been the food. They're in denial, and some people. The thing that's happening right now, Dr. G, is that people who have been in denial, or they refer to themselves as the normies, are waking up. That's why the changes will start taking place. It's not that this stuff wasn't known. It's people, when people were holding certain positions because they were fearful, and now they see inevitable that they're going to be sacrificed. This is why people are starting to have the courage to speak up, especially the middle-class Europeans. They just didn't expect to really be thrown under the bus. The bus done rolled over them twice already. So the evidence that the corporate and constitutional forms are diverging, and that the facade of the de facto authority is giving way to a deeper military trusteeship, while lawful government is reemerging from dormancy. And this point is not the personalities, it is the process. Fiction separating from facts.
This is like somebody said that they punishing us for waking up.
Yeah, they're mad. Well, Satan is mad. That's why weren't they people told that Satan is going to try to pull down as many as he can when he sees that he's going? That's what's happening. So that's why we must love instead of hate. That's why that's why the Asiatics must. That's why they call it the uniting of Asia. Isn't that how Juali closed the Quran? There's the uniting of Asia, right? Exactly.
Can I put it up?
Before eyes.
This right here.
Yes, put that one up.
Okay. Grand Sheik, with the collapse of the current government happening before our eyes, can you elaborate on where a body politic like USAR comes in?
That's because we have to start taking our places among the affairs of men, like Drew Ali said. Even though we know that a lot of the systems in this new era will be dissolved, we must learn the fundamental principles that exist so that we can improve to see that we don't go back to this again.
Right.
To learn from it. So you got to understand and know and comprehend what you've been dealing with in order to fix it. That's the only reason why some of them are allowed to teach us government, but they're trying to save themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so the A131 Atlas are trembling because their charter depends upon a unified illusion, and the illusion,
3i thing.
Yeah,
that 3i. Yeah,
Atlas. You are trembling because their charter depends upon a unified illusion.
Is it real?
It is not new, but my position has always been, Dr. G, that they're emphasizing it now to project the disorder as they always done on the outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Intercatera Divina is terminated. What do we look out for? We look out for unity. We look out for learning.
That's what is looking for.
Because it's already in you. See, and this is back to the God within principle. Because the answer is in you. The answer is you. The issue what we need to do and needed to do, and what is happening around the planet, is that people need to dump the illusion. See, when they render under Caesar what is Caesar, that means when you dump your faith in him, your belief in him, the delusion that they are your government in your service, then the reality comes out of you.
Right.
It's part of your evolution.
So thank you for answering that. And I'm just going to say to Carol, please, and to anyone else on here, generally, if somebody floods the comments with the same question over and over, I will block you. So I didn't block you, Carol, but don't do that again. We get to the questions we can, but please don't block. Please don't flood the comments by copying and pasting the same comment 50 times. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Gracie.
And so once people comprehend that the Republic exists independently of the corporate solvency, the entire imaginary debt engine stalls. And that is why you see the frantic legislations that they're doing, and emergency powers, and the constant crisis. The administrators are attempting, to reboot a dead system that no longer possesses lawful consent. It never possessed lawful consent. It always operated legally. But now that the nation stopped buying their bonds, they can't continue to fund it.
Right. So that's such a revelation, Gresham, because what you're describing is the exorcism of the empire, right? Every shutdown, every headline is the nervous system twitch. That's the old body dying. And so you mentioned the 3i Atlas. If you look at it from a metaphysical perspective, it could represent the lower chakras of the matrix. Of survival, of control, and of greed. Because they've been some greedy.
But again, you got to look at it this way, Dr. J. Like we've always talked about over years, the outsiders is not new here, so that's not the issue.
You mean the visitors that they call the aliens?
Yes. Now, no, we're aliens.
We're the aliens
on here. So let's get over it.
Yeah.
Now,
but we were here first.
But it's an opportunity for them to distract the people from coming after their necks. That's really what's happening. In other words, like this: they don't know what it is, but they know what it is. How they're going to tell you about something that they don't know, but yet they know, and they're telling you something else. It's a back to projection to get the people from looking at them. Why? What is the truth that they're really, really trying to people not to pay attention to?
Right.
That the wages of sin is death. And thus the wages of treason is death. So if they can get you looking at 3i Atlas You're not looking at them.
Right. You don't see what you're not paying.
That's really what's going on. Projection.
I mean, they'll even write and act laws and stuff while we're not paying attention. We looking at Diddy and Daddy.
It doesn't even matter.
I mean, but they've been doing things like that. And
that's why they've done it. That's why it keeps expanding. That's why. Remember what we said, months ago? Every 2 weeks they was charging Diddy with something new. 5 people couldn't do all the stuff they charged. We're not defending anything, but the stuff, he didn't live long enough to do all the stuff that they claim he did without help of other people or the participation of other. But it's a distraction. In other words, the point of it is recognize that they've been distracting you so that you don't pay attention to what they're doing or not doing.
Right. But when governments shut down, they inadvertently show us that life continues without them.
Not just that, because
sun still rises, children still learn, neighbors still,
it ain't related.
Feed each other what we're doing, and that's what we need to get back to anyway. This the theater, because that's what it is, and we talked about it. It pauses, and reality keeps on moving. That's the Most High saying, see, the power was never in the paper. The power's always in you.
They want you not to recognize that the power is in you. Was always you. You're always the issue. And this is back to why they did not and don't want the people to recognize that the sovereignty is the people, not them. Never was them.
Right. See, and these pauses, we could be seen as a sacred pauses, because they reveal how self-governing we, like you said, we already are, and the personalities on those stages, the politricians, the executives, the commanders, and all, they like holographic.
They've always,
they're hologram. They're put
placing the blame on someone else or something else. They create more illusions in order to get you not to pay attention that they're the Satan.
Right. So it's less about who wears what title and more about humanity realizing it. The titles themselves, titles are temporary, and the same folks with the titles, if they die, they get sick, they have sick, they can't take the fiat with them or any of those things unless they got a lot of funds and they keep their head alive in an ice thing, like cryogenics and stuff, but they still not here participating in it. So the more we align with that inner command, the less we require external rules. That's basically what it is. We don't have to go by that. Once you know that, and once you know who you are and what you are, what you're working with. Well, like, show me what you're working with. You need to show yourself what you're working with. You know what I mean? Most of us had to prove to ourselves that we are who we are, because we've been lied to so long that we believe the lie.
That's what gave Satan his power. And so exactly, the law of nations teaches that government derives this power from the governed. There you must understand that divine sovereignty comes from the Most High, the creator, all law of the universe, and not from governments.
Right.
And the moment the governed become cognate of that reality and stand in knowledge, the usurpers and the interlopers' commissions expires. And what we call shutdown is therefore a lawful expiration of ignorance that they promoted and lived off of.
Wow.
And so the corporate veil is thinning. And once you see, you can't unsee.
That's right.
And once you perceive, you can't unperceive. And the estate that they claimed as theirs is really yours. And administration must conform to the true heirs and owners' will.
Yeah. And that's the higher alchemy, turning what is it, the bureaucracy into breath, like they talk about turning gold, making gold out of tin or copper or whatever. But every paper system is built on deceit. It's being composted into truth, because like I said, we were thinking about the US dollar, but not thinking about all those other fiat dollars they had us buying, to think that we were going to get a windfall when they've already devalued. It's worth 2 cents.
Because it never was.
You pay $10 for a 2-cent piece of paper.
What were we talking about today?
I don't know about.
No, it was what we were talking about today. And I said to you, them little pizza.
Mary Jane.
Yeah,
Mary Jane.
Little Mary Jane, little things. They were about the size of an undersized.
This part of your finger.
You know how like they thin pencil, not the regular pencil, thin pencil, and chopped them in about 3/4 inch pieces. And I remember when I was little, we used to get Mary Janes, and they were in volume about 7 pieces of those small things to make up one
and
penny.
they were thicker, heavier. They were these are airy little things with the flavor.
Yeah, flavor, not the substance.
Not the substance. That's the thing we did with the flavor.
It's not candy, it's seasoning.
Yep. That's what I said. I said Grand Sheik because the brother on the phone said, "Oh, you could get some, what is it, turmeric, and some with some pepper in it." And some, I said, "Well, maybe that's what these Mary Janes are. Look at the yellow. Maybe it's turmeric with little flecks of pepper in it." Yeah, but things aren't the way they were. They
No, they've been robbing the people.
Bread went down. The size went down 50% and went up 150%.
Let's put it this way: no, they've been cheating you. Let's put it. That's been cheating.
Absolutely.
Let's just get like it is.
Yeah. So we're reclaiming the land and the language and the law, and we're not doing it through revelation. Not a revolution. It's like with the women. With the war, the women already. It's not about blood. Guns and knives, but we're doing it through revelation. It's being revealed. Truth is being revealed to us individually. The same truth. That's the good part. It's the same truth. That's how we come together in the collective consciousness. That's how the 100th monkey effect takes place. We don't know the tipping point, but we know that if enough start thinking consciously exactly the same way, enough will tip it and turn the tide.
Yep.
And that's the thing. They've worked really hard over time not to get us thinking collectively and coherently. Because we've been thinking collectively in error.
Yep.
But if we can come together coherently, collectively, one mind, we can change this in an instant, like they did.
Isn't that in the cycle of 7? And so the 7 cities which are in Asia, these Asiatics is waking up, and that's the unity. Because it's happening from a divine and manifesting in the civil world.
Right. But, that's why I say don't fear to collapse, but participate in the creation.
It's dismantling.
Yeah, you got to participate in this creation because as these structures dissolve, we must build the next pattern.
We're looking at the dissolution.
Right. And we have to build it from sovereignty and compassion and coherence. And that's the blueprint of a Mexam reborn. That's what we have to do. Like I said, we can't do it as an islander. You can't it can't be your thing. It got to be our thing.
And so the message.
Bring your pieces of your thing, your eyes together, and we can do a weeby thing.
So the message of restoration is hitting those chakras. And so the 7 cities, which are in Asia, these Asiatics are consciously waking up. And you can't unsee now that you've seen. Mm-hmm. And so Islam, Moors. And so remember always, the power of the ancient Moabites, Moors, lies not in protest. You don't have to protest Satan. The world is protesting Satanists. But our principle stands in principle. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We stand on principle and stay there. So we stand upon divine law. We stand upon true jurisprudence. And we operate in honor. And the universe itself will enforce your decrees. Stay in honor. The Inquisition networks cannot withstand the vibrations of truth because their foundation is built on a lie. Their foundation is built on fraud. Their foundation is built on deceit. Their foundations are built on deception and human injury. And so as you align with divine order, the fraud of the Inquisition network cancels out itself.
Right. And that brings us to the edge of the next revelation now, how this lawful and energetic realignment is expressing itself. through the metals, through the land, through the very consciousness of wealth and true wealth, the glitch. And let me tell you what glitch is. I cannot glitch my thing. So okay. I have a new show coming up called Always Glitch. Dr. G Always Glitching. I've been working on this glitch thing for years, maybe actually, 11, 12 years, and it's finally coming to pass. And glitch is not just, the glitch in, as we say in the Matrix, like there's a monkey wrench thrown in, but glitch is an acronym for grow, learn, inspire, teach, create, heal. And the way I see it, and the way it's been downloaded to me, and the way I've written it, it's written in my book about, is that if we're doing these things, Grand Sheik, if our preoccupation is with, and everybody might not be doing the same thing at the same time, but if we're doing these things, growing,
with positive, learning, divine, good intent.
Right. Growing, learning, inspiring, teaching, creating, and healing, it has to all come together. Everybody falls in there somewhere. You're either teaching something or you're learning.
What did Neutralizing say? Neutralizing said there's more than enough work for all to do.
Right.
Yes, he did.
And what I'm saying is the glitch is expanding, and we have to learn how to move with it rather than against it. We have to. We must.
So Moors, knowledge is not a possession. It is a responsibility. See, if it's not used, what good is it? It's a responsibility. Take your place among the affairs of men and apply that knowledge. And the restoration of lawful government begins with self-government, lawful. And so no statute, no charter, nor proclamation can bestow freedom upon those who have not yet governed their own appetites. And therefore, the first duty of the awakened Moors is discipline. And rise at a set hour, study daily, keep accurate records, conduct commerce honorably. And these are not rituals. They are demonstrations of competence, the very proof that jurisdiction belongs with you and to you. And second, assemble. Lawful assemblies are the body politic of the people. When men and women of understanding and proper comprehension convene in honor and mutual benefit, government lives again. And draft your declarations, establish your communities and your community trusts, manage your estates wisely and justly, and operate within the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and of common law and of treaty. And the republic is not built by slogans, it's built by honorable contracts rooted in truth. And thirdly, deal in substance. Substance for substance is the principle of the ancient ones, and it's the principle that will restore legitimate government today. Avoid speculation, engage in productive labor, engage in crafts that serve life.
How many different skills or talents that, have you mastered?
Auto body, barbering, woodcraft, masonry, plumbing, electric, childbirth, some more arts. I can't think of so many. Gardening.
You made clothes?
Yeah. Club made clothes for my children.
Right.
Cooking. I could continue.
That's what I'm saying.
Talk about me.
No, but I brought it up because I know, like I call you have so many things. People, a lot of times people dabble in things, but they're not good at it. But when you do all these things well, that's you do all of these things, as highly skilled craftsman or, but we have to learn, and it's your knowledge, those with knowledge like you, that it has to be passed on, because folks, are not learning.
That's why I built the community center and the attack for that.
Right, but people aren't learning to learn. People haven't been taught to learn how to further themselves using the skills.
Romans have always interfered to block that's why they attack anyone that's conscious,
right,
or that are trying to share, so that it doesn't spread. This is again why we have to come together. So the 7 cities which are in Asia must unite. And like Drawley said, this is the uniting of Asia.
And you forgot you were a vocalist.
Well, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
And I'm a poet.
Yeah. So, we have to, whatever gifts and talents you have, there's a place for you. I'm talking to you. Yeah, you. The one saying, you. Yeah.
And so we exchange fair value for fair value. And that practice itself is divine worship. That's the divine worship of each other, helping each other. And the Creator's law is balance. And remember, usury is the root of the Satan's Inquisition network. Equity is its cure.
Right. Now that's the code of mastery, Grand Sheik: discipline, assembly, substance, and in the glitch field to those who form that triad, like I said, part of it, the grow, learn, and create. When you govern yourself, you stabilize your electromagnetic field. When you gather in lawful assembly, you amplify frequency through coherence. When we come together like that, when we have our events, it's such an awesome time. When the Moors come together, it's called coherence. It's energy connecting with energy. And when you trade, in substance,
you ground yourself.
Yeah. This is how we reprogram the matrix from the inside out. We spent centuries being programmed to chase survival. Now that the program is glitching and the universe is asking, can you thrive? Can you thrive? Thriving means aligning your body, your mind, and your mission. It means that you're treating your thoughts like currency and your words like deeds. It means protecting your frequency the way the ancients protected gold, because both are stores of value. As you refine your vibration, you mint spiritual currency that multiplies everywhere you go. I mean, there's something about having a positive light and energy. Other people can feast off of that.
Love it.
Others can feast off of that, but this negativity, people feast off of that too. And which brings me to mine. Somebody was on I think doing the show the other day and talking about me like a dog. And I decided I wasn't going to go look at their show, and two, I didn't give a shit, because I wasn't in that energy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm learning how to transmute that stuff. And
like Drawley said, don't let people put their spirit on you.
No, I absolutely. This is the new Dr. G. Dr. G don't take that no more. So I choose to be in peace and laugh at it. Like that was a laughing moment.
Its energy is fuel.
Yeah, your energy is it's too precious.
So we learn to honor one another and remember, in principle, this has always been ancient Moabite culture. No nation rises above its woman. That's why it's key. And this is, again, why, from a historical point of view, when people actually study governments and hereditaments, they've always used Ruth the Moabitess as a study point. And you already know that's the matriarch house of Ruth, from which Jesus comes. And so no nation rises among while its people envy or defraud each other. So none of those corruptions that we've learned from the Romans shall we take into the New World. None of that. And our ancestors governed vast empires because they practiced mutual respect. And they fell when that fell.
We fell.
Yes, and the lawful society begins with lawful conversations, and speak truthfully and pay what you owe. And a servant is worthy of his hire, right?
Yeah.
And forgive quickly. And these are not moral niceties; they are commercial imperatives. The vibration of dishonor attracts penalty, and the vibration of honor attracts prosperity.
Right, and the metaphysical reflection of that is resonance. When whatever you hold against someone else, you hold against yourself. So forgiveness is frequency hygiene. It's when you clear resentment, you free that bandwidth for creation. That's why give you need to conduct a daily audit, not just of your finances, but of your emotions, because you have to ask yourself, are you invested in fear, or are you invested in faith, in gossip or growth? And somebody told me what somebody was saying, and my first inclination was, and then my second one was like, girl, please, you got too much to do to think about that. That Naga is up there in the north is crazy. Let him be crazy, right? Ain't got nothing to do with you. You have something to do with you. Your attention is your goal. Spend it wisely. Yeah.
And so don't mistake turbulence for chaos. Turbulence for chaos. And the fall of a corrupt structure, is the rise of natural order. In so-called crisis, you witnesses the economic crisis, the political crisis, climatic, or contractions preceding birth. And hold your ground, you all. Hold your ground.
Yep.
Keep your records.
That's right.
Right? And remain at peace. The world is correcting itself.
Yeah.
The world is purging itself.
Yeah.
The earth is purging itself. And the world is thus following and correcting itself to the vibration of truth.
I'm may not look like it for some, may not believe it, but I'm reminded, because I do come from the church, and I remember a sermon from years ago. I didn't preach it, but somebody else did. I was a little bit younger in faith, but I've never forgot this sermon where the brother said, if you could pull back the curtain, in other words, the veil, pull back the veil, or look into the other dimensions, he said, you will see that heaven is fighting for you. And I think that's what we don't realize is we're not by ourselves, like the prophet that was running saying, they coming after me. And he's like, look, I got 8,000 or whatever, don't worry about that. You're covered. And from the glitch to mention that's the moment of ascension. When the old code, when you know that the old code is deleting itself, and the new code is downloading through us, in each of us being a living temple, we're an antenna and a divine intelligence. So don't make sure you're on the right channel, right frequency. Because
it's one of the reasons why they've always suppressed the talent, because they didn't want us to evolve.
Right.
But now Uranus and Saturn is moving them out of the way and crashing their institutions. Trust yourself, right? Trust your heart, trust goodwill, and evolve.
Yeah, because when we choose coherence over confusion, that's what stabilizes the planet. We think it's just about us individually, our personal emotions, but we don't realize that we are a barometer, and we create or affect the whole, and we become the firewall through which deception can't pass. So yes, these are exciting, uncertain, turbulent times, but they're also fertile, and they're sacred, and they're revolutionary times. The matrix is, like I said, the matrix is melting. As I said in there, it's shaking and quaking, and the maxim is remembering herself. We it's coming back to its own. I mean, there might be some loss of lives, but nothing is really lost, because even those that transition still live on in spirit and need to go to other dimensions or come back in another. So nothing is lost, but it's all happening for the greater good, I believe.
Yeah. Islam, Moors, and as we see the uniting of Asia, let every seeker of truth reaffirm the covenant to live by law, live by love, live by truth, live by peace, and live by freedom and by justice. And upon the Constitution and the art of the ancient principles of our forebears, the light that once illuminated the world through the Moors shall do so again, not through conquest, but through comprehension, through justice.
Yeah, but give thanks, Grand Sheik, and everyone listening. Remember, you are the glitch. You are the glitch, and you are the upgrade. You're the bridge between worlds. You got to keep growing, keep learning, keep inspiring, teaching, creating, and healing. And that's how we turn disruption into destiny. And it's how we make the matrix remember, who built it, who built this shit,
Yeah.
And wait a minute, we remember that. We know.
Have we learned our lessons well?
Yes. yes,
Right.
yes.
Hopefully we have trust that we will to have.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And start demonstrating that we've learned from love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
Right. So I am happy. I feel like we've got through this one. I hope you all listen to this again. Share the video with others. Make sure if you're not subscribed, we need. Why don't we have we don't have 100. We don't have 50,000 subscribers, y'all. We should have been had 50,000 subscribers. You know that.
A lot of times they be glitching.
If you're not subscribed, please go to House of Reawakening Minds and make sure you subscribe. Also, please subscribe to my new channel, which is called Dr. G Always Glitching. Please, I'm going to be coming out with it soon, and excerpts from my book. Right now, my book is on the computer that went dark.
Yes.
But it's all right. I'll figure it out, even if I have to take the hard drive, have it taken out. But right now, if you would go to Dr. G Always Glitching, if you already subscribed to my earlier name of it was it Dr. G something else, but anyway, that's what it's called now. Please subscribe. We're going to do some really great things on that channel. We're just going to go in another direction. House of Reawakening Minds, the official House of Reawakening Minds, Grand Sheik and I and other guests will always be on this channel.
Yes.
But we'll be doing some other things. So we want to thank you. We have
for sharing with us. Yes.
Yeah.
And remember, if you're not a public official and fiduciary, you're not a taxpayer. Rebut any fixed hexed instrument that presents you fraudly as such. Absolutely. Because it's a trick to support the Satanists.
Yeah.
And they've been quite successful and wealthy behind it. Just remember that.
Really. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that are happening and have been happening behind the scenes for such a long time that now the light of truth is being shined upon them. And some folks I had somebody was talking to me about some things, and they were sharing how woke they were. And it was interesting because, the unwoke folks are semi-waking. And so they had half truths, but I said, okay, half truth is a victory.
Yeah.
And so I'm not even going to say nothing to them because
everything, remember, every step forward for everybody is a step back for Rome. They've been lynching justice for centuries and getting away with it and thinking that they would not be a retort to their activities. Yeah. Well,
I'm going to also say before we go, and he's not a child, so we can, it's not going to be a secret. Our Grand Sheik would be celebrating his 80th solar return on February 14th of 2026. Yeah. On our website, sort of save the date. We're going to have we're going to try to have a little elegant affair, if you will, honoring you at the House of Reawakening Minds. We even have a recording artist coming to sing. Right. So if you visit our website, houseofreawakeningminds.org, you'll see, I think it's up there, save the date, February 14th. I know y'all don't celebrate Valentine's Day, so don't be saying I'm going somewhere with my honey. Bring them to celebrate. Grand Sheik's 80th solar return, and more information is coming. We thank you. We appreciate you. And I'm just looking to see if there's any questions that let's do it big. Yep, I agree. I agree. So, all right. Okay. Yeah. And you know what? Before we go, somebody asked about, it was a question, and I meant to bring it up about what's happening in the Caribbean nations, Jamaica and all the different places of Venezuela, how that affects. And I saw something recently, and I did not know that Jamaica is yet another one of the areas that has been earmarked to become a smart city.
Yeah,
Now, well,
I make
first of all, I will remind you that even we got smartphones and all that stuff, but the word smart means pain.
Now remember,
it means, you know what I'm saying? Smart really means pain. Remember, we used to say, "Oh, that's smart." Oh, now all of a sudden they made smart be something good.
Now,
so
if you all remember,
but every place they have earmarked has had a disaster.
But you got to remember that's now. Let's get back. The uniting of Asia is not absent of the attention of the Satanists. Jamaica is one of the major spots of rebellion against the Satanists earlier in the centuries. This is why they've always been a target. This is why you see certain things happening with HARP in that whole area of the Carib. Because remember, the rebellion against the Satanists began there too, not just up to the north.
Mm-hmm.
So things that you see happening, you know, this is why we give energy to help the Moors of the South, knowing that the how'd you say, a lot of the injury and a lot of destruction will begin in the South and come to the North. And so we must unite in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, because you're looking and countering the face of Satan. That's what's really happening. And so as Satan's network is being dismantled, he is spitefully trying to injure as many as he possibly can. Keep that in mind. But we have to have each other's back, don't we?
All right. Yeah. Let me see. I'm going to put this at Mr. Random, in answer to your question, I would say go to usar.gov.us and ask that question. I can't answer the question. We can't answer that question for you regarding the driver's license, but I know you can get that answer. Matter of fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put up that phone number right there.
This is very simple.
Right. And you can call them yourself and you can ask that question. I'm going to take it off. All right. So we thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we'll be back in 2 weeks? Mm-hmm. In 2 weeks, we'll be back here. And hopefully, you have enjoyed the presentation and you will relook at this, share it, and give us your feedback. We love you.
Islam. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Vadi Mekum. Bonabot.
All that. All of that. All right.
This is not merely a building. It's a sanctuary of remembrance, a threshold where the veil parts, and minds once lulled to sleep begin to rise. This is the house of reawakening minds.
I entered in silence, intellect, and despair, seeking refuge from illusions thick in the air. Walls lined with scrolls, lectures dense with light, where knowledge resurrects what was hidden from sight. No pulpit performance, no charismatic show, just a word in its purity, allowing the soul to grow. History unpacked with surgical precision, exposing falsehood, restoring vision. They taught me jurisdiction, the power of a name, how to stand in one's truth, free from legal games, from colonial codes to Moorish descent. I learned that ignorance is the true imprisonment. Not just a church, this is consciousness refined. I found myself inside the house of.
This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns. Inside the house of reawakening.
We speak of capitis, diminution, and trust law with grace, pulling veils from the statues that distort the race. Reverend Doctor don't preach, she teaches through metaphysical keys and universal speeches. From Egypt to Amexim, maps are redrawn and the minds of the lost are profoundly reborn. They decode etymology, undo the brands, expose how black was a corporate sleight of hand. This is reclamation through language and tone, when status is corrected and sovereigns are grown. From natural law to the astrological signs, the cosmos converge in these sacred confines. This ain't dogma, it's the science of the divine. Every lecture a seed in the garden of the mind.
You said know thyself but gave no guide, until I found the house where illusions died. Here the soul remembers, the contract is clear. We are the heirs and the ancestors cheer. This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone, a haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds, in the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns inside the house of reawakening.
They don't ask you to believe, only to remember. You are not lost, you've simply been rendered, redacted by systems, misclassified by law. But the house restores what the paper man saw. It's not just theology, it's the restitching of fate, the alignment of cosmos with your birthright state. Genealogy meets metaphysics, past meets now. The veil is a lie and this house shows how. They speak a treaty, jurisdiction and name, that being black was never a rightful claim. They restore divine memory through patience and fire, raising minds from bondage in the conscious empire. No choir needed when the frequency's high. It's the house where illusions die.
House of reawakening minds, where scholars become sages and the forgotten reclaim the eternal.